I don't think you want to go to university if you want to be an astronaut.
Well, changed my mind completely, of course. I think it was just the imagination that 7-year-old has.
I might be living in cloud cuckoo land, you know. Sort of, mum and dad might say, no, son, that's not life. You don't get a job you like. But I'd like to think I could. Teachers are undervalued, underrated, and the system is beginning to crumble. You know, people outside of it don't realise that, but it is. And it's very disillusioning. You know, you don't feel you're getting anywhere. And of course the money as well, which whatever the papers tell you is abysmal.
Peter left his comprehensive school in Liverpool and at 21 was studying history at London University, living in student digs.
The facts were that I'm not particularly an intelligent person, just reasonable I suppose, but I'm not a genius, and I just went to college on 3 reasonable A levels and just didn't do very much work for 3 years, just did the bare minimum. Turned up to lectures, wrote a few essays, and you get a degree for it, and it's a joke, really.
Once Caroline Tedford said she loved me, and I'm going to marry her when I grow up.
Doesn't appeal to me at all at the moment. I mean, what? I'm just gone 20. I haven't even been abroad yet in my life. So there's no way I'm going to get settled down.
What was it about Peter that you fell in love with?
Who said anything about love? I don't know. We have a very much the same attitude, much the same general attitude to life, even though we're very different in personality and in the things we like to do.
What is it about his personality that attracted you?
Oh, nothing really. Not a great deal.
Peter and Rachel have been married 4 years and met at teacher training college. They have just bought their first home, a terraced house in the centre of Leicester. They both have careers. Peter teaches in a comprehensive school, Rachel in a college of further education.
There are 2 risks, either for one of us to follow the other around and therefore perhaps become frustrated and dissatisfied that you didn't initially follow your own line or your own individual wants. Or there's the risk that you take that you perhaps do have to part sometimes for jobs or whatever, or for what you particularly want to do. I think the latter risk is much more worth taking.
So you would be prepared to part?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is an element of compromise, otherwise why get married?
And do you have any plans for children?
Not at the moment, no. I don't really thought about it seriously.
Why is that?
Well, I suppose because we both got, other things we'd still prefer to be doing. You know, if you have children, that immediately limits you. You don't want to be limited yet.
If you choose to have a family, then you also have a responsibility to children. So, it's a very difficult decision. And although I think most liberated men would say that they too are involved in that decision, I think ultimately the responsibility still comes down on the woman's head.
Is Peter liberated?
Well, I think a lot of men such as Peter like to think they're liberated, and I'm not in any way saying that he's not, but I think when it comes to the crunch, the absolute crunch, are you going to give up your job to look after these children? Then I think it more often than not, that decision is made by the woman rather than the man.
If you do have children, would you want them educated in the way that you've been educated?
I don't know how things have changed, but basically you've still got this emphasis on just getting through exams, which isn't really education. Because most of the stuff you come out of school with is absolutely useless. You just don't need it.
So how would you bring them up, educate them?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the easy answer is teach them more relevant things, get them to think for themselves a bit more, which schools don't do enough.
I mean, would you contemplate putting them into the private sector of education?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Well, it's just a principle. That's all there is to it.
And what is the principle?
Well, the principle is that the private schools help to keep the old class system going. They're part of it, they perpetuate it. So I'm certainly not going to be involved in that.
When I came through school at the end, perhaps of the, well, let's say the ideals of the 60s were still there, even though it was the 70s, and that one was always led to believe that there were golden opportunities. But of course there aren't. And very much now, people of my generation are beginning to realise what perhaps 16-year-olds know now at 16. I am only just beginning to see that now at 27. That in fact, there's no such thing as sort of mobility in any sense of the word. It's very difficult to move up.
Do you think you've had as fair an opportunity as other people?
No. Of course not.
In what way?
Other people got it made for them still, haven't they? They got it all lined up.
How?
Well, like the public school lads. I don't like to slag off people who are in the programme with me. I'm not slagging them off personally. But I mean, they had it set up for them, didn't they?
It's a big problem. Quite a lot of discussion, I think. The workers do tend to take a few liberties as regards strikes.
I would like to think that democracy is here to stay. Perhaps we haven't got full democracy. In fact, we probably haven't. It's a pretty good system.
Are you surprised by the way England's being governed?
I'm not surprised with the people who govern it at the moment now.
Why?
I've even stopped being amazed.
Why?
Why? Well, I don't want to get dragged into party politics, but basically this is the most incompetent, uncaring bloody show we've ever had.
Well, if we can't be an astronaut, I'd like to be a bridewell sergeant in the police force, like my dad is.
Do you want to be rich?
I wouldn't mind, no.
I think once I can get myself going, I can work solid, yeah. But it's the motive, which is very hard to acquire. Yeah. I'm dead lazy.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Not much. I'm just hard to get, I'm not the sort of person who can get charged up very quickly. I am really lazy, if I've got things to do, I'd sooner make a cup of tea first and read the paper.
He always looks on the negative side of life before he looks on the positive, whereas perhaps I'm the opposite, and that in a sense is an area of conflict, yes. Yeah, a clash of personalities. Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, as you deal with all people like that, you just give them a good kick and say, wake up to it, that kind of thing.
And do you see any areas of conflict in the future for you? In personality?
No, I don't. Not really, because I think we both appreciate each other's personalities. In fact, it would be quite dull to be exactly the same. I mean, there's something quite exciting in being different, in that it isn't as predictable. We're not along the same track all the time.
On the grass, we play international wrestling. Yeah, that's only at summertime though.
What have been for you the best times?
Tommy Smith scoring the second goal in Rome. Definitely. One of the old times.
Which game was that?
Which game was that? That was the European Cup final, 1977. No, it's hard, after that was all, nothing else compares with it really, so it's hard to think of anything else. I'll tell you what was another good moment. That was a group I played with doing quite well on a few occasions. That was good.
Tell me about that.
That's just a local band. I was until fairly recently. Just played pubs and that, but it was very enjoyable. When you get a good reaction from people, it's just one of the best things you can have, really.
Do you ever get that in your work?
Oh, God, no.
Why?
Well, what are you asking? They're like applauded end of each lesson or something.
No, just that excitement, that communication.
No, it does.
Do you think people change much, or do you think we saw you, the man, the 7-year-old boy?
I thought for a while that was a bit too simple, but I think it's true, because after that, your barriers begin to go up and you learn how to fend off things, like I was just saying. And obviously when you're 7, you don't think about it, you just come out with it. So yeah, to a point you reflect that, yeah.
So the boy at 7 is in a sense the real you.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, sort of the essential Peter Davis.